that really you, Merlin?
Yep, it's really me.
How's it going today?
It's going all right. I'm actually the one that's going to be helping you run through these slides.
Oh, fun.
Uh-huh.
How many people have been attending so far?
What is that?
How many people have been attending?
I mean, honestly, this is the only one that I've been on so far, so I haven't not quite sure who's been on, who hasn't been on.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I noticed this morning, like even our 9 a.m. was a little bit slow, everybody logging in, but then we got
really?
out. Yeah. So
yeah, so I mean we'll see.
yeah.
But I mean usually with Ignite, like first handful you usually get a decent amount, and then toward the end it starts to taper off. But
yeah. But we do have an influx of new agents too, I've noticed.
Yeah. So I'm hoping, next few minutes we'll see at least a few people jump on here.
Well, I mean, I jumped on, because in case you want to jump on early and do all the chit chat stuff. So yay.
Yeah.
But technically they have like 13 minutes.
Yeah.
So how's it for you transitioning to doing real estate?
I mean, for me, it's, I think it was maybe the first like couple of weeks. It's a little weird, just because it's, the schedule was just a little off, right? Just kind of had to rework the whole like time block, just because what I had at, as the MCA, it was just kind of, it laid itself out. And so, just kind of figuring out the first like couple of weeks, like, okay, what's my, what works best for me was the, that little hurdle that I had to jump. But, now so far it's, have a pretty like decent schedule for myself just to keep myself in line throughout the day.
I know when I started, I had to deal with that where it was a lot of people, should be your schedule. Should be what you do. And I'm like, okay. And it's like, oh my God, I hate this.
Yeah.
So I had to start, realizing, okay, how am I working this? And at the same time, because I'm a networker and I was going to all of these events, people would say like, okay, every day you need to be doing this from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. I'm like, I've got 3 events throughout the week that I'm networking with people, and so it seemed like it was so inflexible. And then that's when I started learning, okay, those are nice suggestions, but you have to figure out what works for you. And also, I'm a night person. So I'm creative after 9 p.m. I'm super creative after 9 p.m. So now I've like learned in the morning, that's not a time where I schedule anything. I have to be creative. It's much better for me to do logistic stuff in the morning. And then as the day goes on, I can start to do more creative things.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, like, that's been the process, right? It's because, it's easy. I mean, even with the like, script training, right? It's really easy just to pull like a million things off of the internet and just try and follow it to a T. But, everybody's gonna respond differently to it. Some people are gonna get, caught up over a script and, suddenly decide that, what, I'm more so of a free form type of, conversationalist. And, on the other side of that, some people like need to follow it to a T. It's like, kind of like the, like a tree branch style thing before like it'll start to kind of click with them. So yeah, I totally get that.
Yeah, and for the people listening in, I'll mention this too when I start to go through this, but that was another thing I really had to learn was what is your realtor's, what's your personal style? What are your, what are your gifts and what are your weaknesses? And then you have to do it according to that, because like for you, if for memorizing it and saying it word for word is what works best for you, and then it sounds natural, then that's what you do. But other people like me, when I used to teach, when I first started teaching years ago, I tried to do all my lessons word for word, and it was terrible. Oh my God, those poor junior hires. And then once I started doing everything in outline format and letting myself be more free form, but then I hit all the important things, I was just right on top of it. And so for me, I learned, and then I've slowly, I've even changed that, where I shouldn't change it. I enhanced that, where with color printers, I started doing my same outlines, but then I color coded every section. So I knew when I was speaking, if I glanced down, well, I'm done with the blue section, I'm on the red section now. So I didn't have to even find my place again. So it allowed it to flow much more better. But that was me,
Right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Hi, Patty. I think this is the first time I'm meeting you.
Hi, how are you?
Good. And Bella. Yeah, I mean, we're still like 8 minutes out. So this is just the, get to know you thing. I'm here in my living room with my girls. This is Kona. And this is Nalani. They're both rescue blue healers.
Aw, my friend has blue healers.
Yeah. Oh my God. We both the girls are. She's hitting 7 soon. She's 6.5, and I always grew up with Springer Spaniels, so I was like, okay, I'm not sure about this, and oh my God, I love these kids. Just they're just great dogs.
Funny, I just got a puppy. That's what I've been. He's
what type?
At my lap right now. I wondered if he doesn't have some Springer Spaniel in him, but they think he's Havanese in Bijan. Okay. He's one.
Oh my God, so cute.
Yeah, he's sweet. He just went to the dentist with me and sat in the dentist chair with me.
Oh my God, how cute.
But I feel like he's got Springer in him a little bit. They say Bijan and maybe in Havanese. They said Havanese, but I think he's got a little Springer in him.
Yeah. Our Springer Spaniels, the purebred, because my grandfather got me a champion bred. She was in the vet all the time because it's so purebred. So a mix like that's great, because our vet even said, any kind of mix like that, they don't have as many issues.
Oh, okay.
Well, yeah, so that's why. And you can go. Like a friend of mine, she owns Arc Point Labs, and they even do a DNA test for the dogs in case you want to find out the exact breeds.
Oh, what's it called?
Arc Point Labs does that. They're in Santa Fe Springs, but I think a doggy DNA, I think they can do that mail-in or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because technically, this one here, Kona, she was bought from a breeder, and they had her for 2 months, and then they had to give her up. They couldn't keep her anymore. So we rescued her that way. Nalani, the mother was purebred, and she was found on the streets pregnant. So we think she's mostly blue healer, or maybe totally, but she would be the one I would do the DNA test on to see if something else got mixed in.
Sure.
Maury says he's going to be joining us, but he's having to do an offer, which is a good reason to be a little bit late. And how long have both of you been at Largemont?
I've only been a couple months.
Okay.
I've been working, so this is my first stretch not having to work where I can actually focus on it, but a couple months.
Great. What about you, Bella?
Well, I actually started last year in March as Laura's assistant. And then as of December, I got my license. And technically as of January, like mid-January is when I started making the transition from the assistant to the buyer agent role. So that's where I'm at right now.
Cool. By the way, I put in the chat my email address. I kind of send out stuff regularly to agents, where some of it's just helpful things. A lot of it, I get a lot of stuff where it's like, hey, it's literally copy and paste, and you send it to your buyers or to your sellers. So if you want to send me your contact info, that's why my email's in there. I came from an office that really sucked. And, it's one of those things, you don't know how good you have it until until you realize that how bad it was. And I was kind of, I jumped into real estate, so excited. My mom did real estate. And literally after about 4 months, I started thinking I might have chosen the wrong career, because I was like, this is just not anything I was, wanting, and so on. But my first office was very cookie cutter. They were all about numbers. They weren't about people. And there was very little support for any training, any, new agents. The training the office did was literally, they would bring in vendors and the vendors would train on their products, but that was it. There was no like, hey, this is how you do this. This is how, nothing like this Ignite series, nothing at all. And the brokerage itself, which, let's see, I don't want to throw a brokerage while I'm being recorded under the bus. So let's just say it rhymes with Ventury 51. Okay. So as far as the brokerage in general, they really didn't have much set up as well. In fact, they started a new like CRM kind of program, and they moved to it, and they did so little vetting of it that after 4 months, they realized it was a disaster and moved back to their old program. And I mentioned to everyone, I said, this cost millions. I mean, millions just for the company alone, let alone the frustration and the time and everything that it cost the agents. And it was really typical. And so and after I was in the industry a little bit longer, I kind of started knowing what I was looking for more. I started realizing that, okay, their cookie cutter approach, which so did not fit me, just wasn't going to fit. Yeah. So that's when I kind of started exploring more. And ironically, I sold a home in Miracle Mile, and I was working the neighborhood, and another agent from our office, Chuck Marcourt, he was also working the neighborhood. And actually at first I saw him walking across the street. I was like, oh, there's my competition. I should go punch him. And so he told me that, he had a home coming up in that same area. And I was like, well, I have a ton of buyers that came to my open house. So one thing led to another. We got to be friends. And then I had a listing in a condo in Cedar Sinai. And because I live in Whittier, and so how we do things in Whittier as far as broker previews and that kind of stuff is different than how it's done in Hollywood and the West Side. And so I learned that, and I ended up saying, can I buy you coffee and pick your brain? Because I need to know how things are done on this side, because I'm going to have, stuff over here too. Picked his brain. We got to be good friends. And he said, I think you want to speak to Joey. One thing led to another. I interviewed 3 times. And part of me, I was a little brutal with Joey, because I wanted to only move once again and be done, and that's it. And so, I've been with the office ever since. And yeah, I just think it's a great office. It's very unique. The support, if you talk to Ed, he'll tell you that a lot of the personal coaches across the country, it's like pulling teeth trying to teach, get people to teach Ignite. And most of the time they just have to teach the whole thing because nobody's willing to do it. And in our office, it's usually just fill in the gaps. Like right now, I know there's only 3 classes that are not booked yet. And that's it. Everybody's willing to pitch in, everybody's willing to help. So, and that just kind of tells you the kind of people in the office. People are willing to answer questions. You can call people. I've had that happen a number of times. Some people call me, and I'll just say, a few times, because it's almost like, being a lawyer or, the medical field, there's so many specialties, you can't know everything, and you can't be expected to know everything. So you just keep learning. And so I even did that in our office. I had a good friend of mine, her parents want to sell a fourplex down in Long Beach, and I'm very experienced on single family residential, but not a whole lot on the multiples. And this was the sort of thing I brought in Christina Kim, because I knew Christina not only has contacts, but she's done this multiple times. So she knows, you know, how to walk this through, and together we're stronger. So yeah, so, you know, I, since joining our office, and you'll start to see this as your career goes on, you're constantly going to be approached to go to other offices. They're going to try and poach you. And for me, you know, I keep on getting approached, and I just say, nope, I'm happy. You know, nope, I'm happy. In fact, even my fiance, KW Downey, approached me, and and he's like, "You're not moving." I go, "No. You know," and they even try to use the thing. Well, you'll still be in KW. I'm like, no, thank you. I'd rather not. Okay, and Lance, I'm going to put in the again because I know it doesn't show up from past. There we go. There's my email address. If you guys want to email me, I can put you on an email list I was mentioning. And I just send out things that, you know, either stats or just helpful things that you can send out to clients, or, you know, educational, you know, what's going on in the market right now. What are some things to look out for? Even just simple graphics you can send, like, hey, are you a buyer? Then here's the 4 things you need to be aware of, that kind of stuff. So feel free to just send me your contact info, and we can go from there. Technically, we are now 2 minutes into it. So I'm just going to go ahead and get started, because I can talk a lot, and I have a lot of caffeine with me, so that'll really help. So first, I'm going to let you guys know that as I teach today, you know, I mentioned this a little bit in the warm-up. Some of you, I have a very different style. So some of you are going to love me. And I say this at every Ignite, so this is nothing new. Some of you will, you know, love me. Some will hate me. Reason being, we all have a different way of doing real estate. You know, we all have a different profile. Some of our, you know, top hitters in our office, let's say, you look at Core Group LA, Pete Bonacore, just, you know, sterling guy. He's a networking guy. You know, he has a lot of golf buddies, and he, you know, that's how he approaches things. So does Tiffany Chin. You look at Laura Anderson, and she's very much a farming type person. And so she farms her area, and she's known for Faircrest Heights. Those are their styles. That's how they approach things. So I'm going to have an emphasis on how I do real estate. I try and, you know, I try and just present everything as best as I can, but my area of forte is networking. You know, it's referrals, it's one-on-one, it's that sort of thing. So that's what I'm really good in. That's what I'm really experienced in. I've tried, you know, the cold calls, and I did the Mojo dialer at the first brokerage I was at, hated it. But one of my really good friends, and we're still good friends to this day, who's at that brokerage, he's one of those just 3 hours, 4 hours a day, Mojo dialer, calling all these cold leads that he's never met these people before. And it's just until he gets one that bites a little bit, you know, and that's his approach. And he's comfortable with that. He's told me if he went to a networking event, he'd be there 10 minutes and he, you know, it's like, please let me get out of here. For me, I'm like, take me to a networking event and they have to turn off the lights to get me out of there. I mean, I just want to shut the place down. So that's my style. The other thing too, is that if you look on like the DISC personality, everybody has a different, you have a primary and a secondary. And on the DISC personality, I tend to be an I and an S. And it's very easy when you look at the DISC personality. That's me, that's me, that's me, that's me. But then when you actually take the test, you're like, yeah, but you're more towards this. It's not all or nothing. It's what you gravitate more towards. So I know I'm a, you know, in high IS and an IC. For high Ds, I drive them crazy if they just listen to my style, because they're like, oh my God, you told everything you needed to in 2,000 words and all I needed was 50 of them. And so So that's another reason why you may like or not like me. And because of that too, when I approach my clients, I try and figure out what their style is, because then I know how to communicate with them. Again, my first 2 listings I ever had, the first one, she was a high D. So our open house phone calls would be, hey, open house went great today. How many people showed up? About 21 people showed up. I had 7 people really interested, same hours tomorrow, and 3 of them are coming back tomorrow for a second showing. Okay, sounds great. Click. And we were done, because anything more would waste her time. And then she gets annoyed. But then I had my second listing, he's a high I. So for him, he wanted to feel everything. So he wanted, well, what did people think? Did they like the place? Did they not like the place? What, were they, and everything he wanted to know. So he was a 20-minute phone call, because if I cut him as short as the other one, then it's like, I'm not giving him service. So just that throwing into the works too. Okay. So, and by the way, I never needed readers until I started real estate. And then all these contracts that are super small, guess what? Yeah, they screwed up my eyes. Okay. So when we look at what we're going to focus on, today we're focusing on your database, which when you focus on your database, you're looking at basically how you're lead generating. The name of the game, when I first got into business, I constantly was told you need to lead generate. And what wasn't explained to me was that at the time, they were basically telling me the cookie cutter way of lead generating, and I hated it. But then when I discovered I don't have to do it that way, like the mojo dialing, I'm more of a networking person, then I started liking it a little bit more. So that's going to be our focus today. When you look at your database, basically your database is everybody you know, and everybody you're getting to know, and everybody you will know. So that's how we're going to look at it. If you look at the big picture, which is on this page here, okay, can we get to the big picture page slide? Yay, and then next one. Well, next one. Okay. Wow, they updated, they changed it from mine. Look at mine. This is what they gave me. Okay, but when you're looking at, yep. Okay. When you're looking at your lead generation, you're looking at your database. Your database, you have to think of as a well-tended garden. It's something that is almost a living, well, it is a living thing, because it's how you're keeping in touch with your relationships. So what that means is when you go through your entire database, that's lovely. But don't think it's a one and done, okay? It's something you're always going to be updating, always changing. Why? People move. You have new people coming into your database. You have people that had a baby. You find out new information. Oh, this is their birthday. Oh, this is this. Oh, so-and-so got divorced. Oh, they got married. All these different life events happens. That's part of it. And you're constantly going to be updating it. So think of it like that. Also, for some of us, you may be starting off with a huge database. I started off with a database of 1,600 contacts. And when COVID happened, all of us were kind of on that whole panicky thing. So I actually just went through my entire database and started cleaning it up as I went. So I started contacting people, but there would be some contacts in there like they shouldn't be in there. Boom, they're gone. They shouldn't be in there. So then my database got more whittled down to around 1,200 people. I took 400 out just on the first go around. Then I started adjusting it too as I started going through. I started changing things, adding things, putting other things in. So that's what you're going to be looking at. When you have, when you're looking at, when you're looking at creating that database, there's going to be 2 ways to do it. You're going to be looking at prospecting and marketing. Marketing is money heavy. Prospecting is time and energy heavy. So what do I mean by that? Marketing is stuff like, oh, not that you need to do this, but oh, I have a sign on the side of a bus that there's my name and my phone number, because for some reason when people are driving by a bus, they're going to write down your name and phone number. I don't get it, but okay, fine. That would be marketing or other things. You know, you're buying promotional materials, you're buying ads, all of that is marketing. And it's more indirect. When you're looking at prospecting, that's when you're calling somebody, you know, and you're talking to them on the phone. That's when you're texting them, messaging them, anything that's more personal. That's when you could be writing a handwritten note, that kind of thing. That's more that prospecting side of things. And the two really go well hand in hand. By the way, all marketing doesn't always have to cost a lot. Marketing can also be simple, where you're just sending out a newsletter once a month, and it can be an email. You know, that doesn't really cost a lot. I send out one once a week, and mine is really simple. It's more just a thing for once a week. Every Saturday, I'm in people's faces. That's all it is. So that's that kind of marketing side of things. Your database, as it's coming through, these people that you know, these people that you're creating these contacts with, you're nourishing the relationships. That's part of the cultivation. You're going ahead and you're nurturing that. You're making it grow. Now, how does that work for me? Okay. For me, because I'm more of a networker person and I'm a high touch and I tend to be a referral person, today I'll be sending out birthday cards for everybody in the month of February. And so everybody that I can get their hands on, you know, that I know their birthday ahead of time, or I go on Facebook and I look at all the upcoming events, and then I go to birthdays, and anyone that I haven't already covered in there that I want to send a birthday card to, I do. And that's some of the stuff that I do. That's one of those things that I cultivate that relationship. I'm a senior specialist. I have a SRES, Senior Real Estate Specialist, certification from the National Association of Realtors. So I've kept in touch with a lot of our senior communities in the area. So for them, I give the executive directors a little bit extra. I will drop off cookies, and and by the way, this is part of my marketing. I have pictures of the dogs every time I drop off cookies, and it's usually themed. So this month I would be dropping off cookies with Valentine's on it, and they're all dressed up in Valentine's stuff. And so it's really cute, and my contact information is there, and they appreciate it. And so you cultivate that relationship, and then you start to develop a point where, oh, a senior has come into their community and they need to sell their home. Who are they going to contact? They're going to contact me. And I've had that happen. I had actually one sale last year that came from that exact thing. And then it was starting off last year, but we're in the middle of doing the power of attorney. So now it's transitioned to this year, but I have a condo that'll be coming up in Belmont Shore down in Long Beach this year. And it's from the same exact source. So I've treated this person super well. You know, I have dropped off gifts. I've dropped off thank you things. I've kept in touch with them. We're Facebook friends, you know, that sort of thing. That's part of that cultivation where it's that relationship. And all this stuff is noted in my database. You know, a lot of the stuff I keep track of because you want to nourish that. 75% of the deals you do are going to come from people that you know. And most of the time, I forgot this stat. I think it's, oh my gosh, and forgive me if I'm wrong on this, it's like between 52 and 67%, something like that, of people will go with the first realtor they talk to about something. You know, people they don't do the Amazon shopping all the time where it's like, oh, who has this deal? It's more of a personal thing. Once they get a good referral, once they get a good contact and the relationship's being built, they're going to continue to go with one. So that's why your database is so valuable. The first 3 years, I'll be really honest here, my database was nil. It sucked. You know, I didn't really have much going on there because I didn't do any of this. I didn't tend it. I didn't clean it up. So I didn't utilize it. Yeah, I have a whole bunch of contacts there, but I can't even remember who that person is. So that has changed for me now, and I've cleaned it up. And I can tell you that this really makes a big difference. Plus, you're not pulling your hair out. It helps you keep track. You know, it's the kind of thing, once you start going through your database and working it, some of the work is easier to do because you're not figuring out, who do I need to contact? What do I need to do? A lot of that stuff is built in. You know, have I emailed this person? Have I contacted this person? Wait, am I supposed to be phone calling this person? I don't remember when the last time I called them. So this really helps a lot. Let me also tell you something. Once your database starts growing, you are not going to be a supercomputer. I had an open house that the first few open houses I had on the listings, I would just take the information down. Oh, okay. And I had these great sheets that I made and I had all this detailed information, but I didn't have extra information in there. So then I would enter that stuff into the database and I'd be like, oh, I'll remember that she's looking for her niece and nephew. I didn't remember that. Oh, I'll remember that they're looking only in the west side, but nothing above $900,000. I'll remember the 900,000 because I have it literally in a box there, but on the west side, oh, I forgot to write that down. So having a database really helps because I learned, and this industry, you're going to be learning all the time. So everybody is always learning. When I had an open house in Downey and I was getting a ton of people coming through that open house, I started recording all that information. Now, I remember, because I've looked at it so many times in my database, there's a Vincent and Keyshawn in Downey that he is a retired police officer. She's a social worker, and they're looking for a place that's got big walk-in closets, one for each. Why do I remember all that stuff? Because I wrote it down in my notes and then I transferred it to my database. So every time I looked at that information, it's there. Now I only happen to remember that because they're actually my example I use all the time. There's a ton of people that went through that I don't remember all the details, but because it's in my database, I remember those details. Okay. Now, if you're using command, you're going to see a section. This is a little tip. You're going to see a section that says details. That's where you write all this information in there. Anything that's pertinent that isn't going to be part of the regular stuff that's in there. And here's an extra little tip. If you're syncing with, let's say, Apple's iCloud, not everything syncs over. I know, who knew? So what I mean by that is a lot of times you can put in a Facebook link, you can put in, the LinkedIn link, you can put in those links, but that doesn't always come over into Apple's little system where it has that down there. So my little trick or cheat for that is when I would put the link in, if I'm using command and I put the link in there, I also put it in the details section because the details always come over. So that way, even if I'm looking up something in Apple's contact database, it's still in the details section. So even if it's not there, I still know where their Facebook is. So that's just one of those, little side things. It's not official, but yeah, that's it. Your database also is really determined by the quality of how well you're taking care of it and how much information is in there. If you just have somebody's name, phone number, and it's real generic, then okay, that's all you got. You could have 5,000 contacts and not know these people. You bought all these Zillow leads and you just shoved them in your database, and that's all they are. They're just contacts. You have no clue who they are. But if these are people you get to know, these are people that you begin to start that relationship with, the quality of your database becomes much greater, and then you'll start to be able to nurture and help it grow. Again, think like a garden, okay? And understand too, part of your database, you're gonna start to treat different sections a little bit differently. You're gonna have some people, like I mentioned, I had this one guy, Daniel, who is a senior community executive director. He's given me 4 referrals. 2 of them, is one was a sale, one is a sale this year. So him, I treat a little bit differently, and he's in, and all that's noted in my database. Some are going to be end users where, no, you're actually going to be dealing with them. Some are going to be referral. Some are going to be both. So the database helps you keep track of all this stuff because you can make notes. You can, you when you're in a database, no matter what you're using, when you're in a database, you'll record what you're doing. Oh, I made a phone call. I made a text. They replied like this, all of that sort of thing. So, okay, let's go to, let's see, next slide. Next slide. Lead generation. Okay, after that, Okay. I don't. Okay. This is.
It's way off, Rob.
Yeah, it is way off, but that's okay. We'll just stay there because this is a good one and I can fill it in. Okay, people get ready to take notes. Up until now, what did you guys think a database was? Let me just get your thinking on it. Lance, you were a little bit broken up there.
Yeah, anyone that you know, anyone that's in your contacts list.
Okay, good. When people talk to you, let me ask a better question. Actually, that's a terrible question. It's in the notes, but it is a terrible question. How did you guys, when you guys first got into real estate and maybe the issue of database came up, what was your thoughts about what you would do with it? What would you do with your contacts?
Sorry, can you ask that again, Rob? What would we do?
Yeah, you know, I mean, talking about a database, which is all the people you know, when you started hearing you're going to have to, you know, not have to, God, that sounds terrible. When you heard that, you know, you were going to be contacting people that you know, what came to your mind?
Just, you know, calling them and talking to them about, well, you know, just calling them up and shooting, you know, talking to them, having a conversation, and then getting around to the real estate thing at some point in the conversation. Is that what you mean when we were using our database to call?
It can be, yeah. That's a great example.
And same thing that you're talking about, I thought was just, you know, follow, you know, what the conversation consisted of and what it is, when you're going to call them back again, like, you know, in a couple months, maybe say, hey, can you mind if I call you back in a couple months? Maybe put that in your details and check. And, you know, I don't know. That sounds.
No. That's right on the money.
I mean, for me, my database is going to be, I'm a networker too. So that's my, you know, anyone and everyone I've ever come across, I have to go through lists of coworkers and family and friends and people on the street, Uber drivers, you know, whoever I've met where I've handed the card or talked to them. So. Right.
That's a great way. One of the things is I started learning that I would hand my card out, but I'd always try and get other people's information. And because I learned early on, when I hand my card out and they'll say, oh, I'll contact you. Yeah, that only happens maybe, you know, 1 out of 5 times. So if I get their information, if I can be more proactive about it, it really helps, because then they're in my database. You know, it's not, oh, I hope they contact me so I can put them in. They're actually in my database. Understanding where your leads come from. One of the sections they talk about is you need to obtain permission. And for Patty, like you and I, when we've been in networking situations, that's already there, you know, because you've networked with them. But the reason why they bring that up, if somebody hasn't raised their hand, so again, you're doing a cold calling, you may be going off of expireds or something like that, you do kind of need to broach that and obtain permission to communicate with them. Because otherwise, just on a personal basis, you know, it's like when the person calls you up and you get that phone call and it's like from Iowa and you answer the phone and it's like, hi, we're calling about, you know, new windows on your house. It's like, no, thank you. They didn't have permission to call me, and they're annoying at that point. So if you're getting your leads from somewhere that you don't already have some rapport with, then you do need to obtain permission. Now, if any of you guys are going into Op City, they've already kind of raised their hand. So they do want information about real estate, and it's more that now you're just introducing yourself and obtaining permission to speak with them. They still don't know you, but they have raised their hand. So there's a little bit more of that there. And then people that you already know, you already have permission because you've already talked to them. sort of thing. That's one of the things. There's going to be levels in which you're going to be collecting information. And the first is just the basic thing, you know, name, phone number, email address, and home address. Now, there's some tricks, and I bring this up in my marketing way of doing things, but let's say, Patty, you're going through your list and you're like, oh, I have this person's name and I have their phone number, and I have their email address, but I don't have their home address. Okay, so you talk to them on the phone. This was such a great conversation. I really appreciate it so much. I want to send you a thank you card. Where would I send that to? So then you can get their home address. For birthdays, oh my gosh, I use that all the time. When I'm going through, and it doesn't always work, about, I'd say, you know, 8 out of 10 times it works. Some of the other time they're like, oh, thank you so much for the thought, and that's it. But what I'll do is I'll go through my Facebook page or LinkedIn. Facebook will tell you everything, you know, coming up, no matter when you want to find it. LinkedIn, it's only like within a few days. So if you find a LinkedIn birthday, you found it, but there's nowhere to search for it. I've tried. But a lot of times I will say, hey, I want to send you a birthday card. Where do I send that to? And then I get their home address. So that's one way to really help. People will sometimes tell you, you know, well, you have my phone number, so you can just call me if you find something. Okay, that would be fine. However, there's sometimes too, there's more details I would really like to send you, and just an email address would really help with that, if that would be possible. So you can kind of do that, you know, a little bit. Sometimes you can even go the extra, you know, like maybe the home address isn't going to work, you know, and they're like, oh, well, no, thank you anyway. And some people just will flat out, I've had one person tell me, nope, I don't want to give you my home address. I'm like, okay, is there an email address I can send you, you know, a birthday card to? Yeah, something, you know, you don't want to be annoying, but the more you can put in that database, the better it is. And the first level is looking at it, and that's just the essential information. After that, you're going to be looking at, and you're going to be looking at what makes it effective. So that's where you get like the personal information. You get the birthdays. Now, one thing I just drives me a little crazy is sometimes in our industry, there's so much emphasis on real estate. They forget that we're the realtors. Our clients are not. So yes, we may be thinking about real estate 24 hours a day, but they're not. So the idea, like, make sure, you know, you have their home anniversary, you know, when they bought their home from you. Yes, that's great. Okay. And you can put that in their home anniversary. But when you send them a home anniversary card, that's cute. And yes, that's your realtor, and yay. You send them an anniversary card because you found out on Facebook it's their anniversary. They kind of appreciate that more. That's more of a personal touch. And the more personal touch you have with them, then the more that they're going to think of you. You're going to be front of mind, which is what the database is kind of about. You're going to be more front of mind when they actually have that need. The average person in the US moves every 10 years. So you're hitting them on year 4, you know, you are quite a ways from when they're going to be thinking about actually moving. But you stay front of mind. Once that time comes around, oh, I've been in touch with Lance this whole time. So let me just ask him, we're thinking about selling a home. Could you help us out with that? And then that becomes a potential lead. I had that happen last year when I was texting everybody through my database that I knew, and somebody I've known for years that's on my Christmas card list. He retired early, and he said, you know what? I may be thinking about selling my house in Encino. I know it's a little bit of a drive for you, but would you mind doing that? No, I'd be more than happy. And I followed up with him a few times on that too. Now, has that translated to, okay, we've actually had the appointment? Not yet. And honestly, he works also on a charity thing in Africa. So he is over there quite a bit now. But at least I'm front of mind. I'm keeping in touch with him. So when he's ready to pull that trigger, I'll be the person most likely, there's no guarantee, but I'll be the person most likely he'll contact. And that's what you're shooting for. Also, some of this, you don't even know where it comes from. I had, part of it's been the prospecting, and this is an example of how things have worked hand in hand. And then it's been the marketing. Every week, this person, his name is Josue, he gets my email from me. He called me up last week and said, and literally it went this way, dude, can you help me out? I'm like, yeah, what do you need? Well, I need to buy a home for my sister, and it needs to be, you know, in this price range and blah, blah, blah. Okay, have you started with this? No. How do we get started? Okay, I need to put you in contact with my preferred lender, which is Andy from the office, and that way we can get you pre-qualified. Okay, he goes, I was pre-qualified last year, but I know that's old, but I know this is how much I probably can afford. Okay, why don't we set up a list and I'll start sending you the list. We already have a showing this coming Tuesday for him. So, you know, that's one of those things that Friday morning, I had no clue that he was going to be so serious about looking for a home. Tomorrow now we're already looking at homes for him, and Annie's in the process of pre-qualifying him. So that's that sort of thing. You're working that database, and that's what happens. You start getting those sort of things calling. But I've known this guy for, I would say 5 years, and now he's ready to pull the trigger. So that's why we're kind of emphasizing the database, because you don't want, and it comes up later in the lesson, but I cheat all the time and I bounce all around. You don't want to be a realtor where you're only dealing with the deal of the moment, the deal of the day, who's ready to buy or sell now. If you work your database, it starts to become more of a predictable flow of leads that come in because people start referring. I have a gentleman, his name is Richard, and he's going to sell his parents' home in Whittier probably sometime this year. In fact, he's going to be down Wednesday to clean out the garage. And he's been asking me, he actually wants to do like total renovation, make it picture perfect and sell it that way. He doesn't want to sell it as a fixer at all, which is fine. So that's what we're doing. He referred me to somebody 2 weeks ago, and they're thinking about selling their home in Whittier. And so I interviewed with them. So that's a referral that I got, but that's because I've also kept in touch with Richard. I've nurtured that relationship, and now he's referring me. And I'm beginning to get more of that as my career is going on, and it is a little more comfortable. So I also want you to understand that it takes a while for that to happen, but you working it now is what pays off in the long run. Think of it when you go into the gym, and when I could send you the picture, but trust me, you don't want to see it. When I was 29 and overweight and on a beach, wasn't a pretty sight, okay? And I saw that photo of me come back, and I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that's me. Because this is back in the days, you know, when things aren't digital. So literally I had to wait for the film to get developed. And I was like, whoa, baby. And so I joined the gym. Well, just because I joined the gym doesn't mean all of a sudden I lost weight. It took effort and it took time. And after a while, I started becoming more adept at it, and I started learning more. And I also started learning like, oh, I hate the bike in the treadmill or the gym. Oh my God, I hate the bike. And then after the bike is the treadmill. Not a big fan of the treadmill either. Get me on a Stairmaster, which I have one in the garage. I'm a happy camper. So I started to learn what works for me. And then that started paying off. But it took time for that to happen. And it's going to be the same way in your career. So some of the stuff at the beginning, you're not going to see immediate results, but it will. It's just like a garden. You plant, you nurture, and then it starts to grow. Okay. When you're looking at a contact, we always talk about 36 touch. Actually, a few years ago, they had it as a 33 touch because they dug all the numbers. But then they realized, well, if you're dividing it by 12 months, 33 doesn't divide well. If you're dividing it by 36, oh, guess what? You get an even number. So let's do that. Math is easier. So, so the idea is you do 36 touches. And in the 36 touches, it can be, it could be 4 phone calls, which is 1 a quarter. Now, if you have a database of 200, that's not that huge of a challenge. You have a database of 2,000, ooh, that's a little bit of a challenge. So you kind of have to, judge. And that's also when you have a database. If you have John Doe and no other information about him, do I call him? Do I not call him? What's going on? You have John Doe and he's with Coldwell Banker. Oh, he's another realtor. I don't need to call him, Yes, you could, but if you've got 2,000 people in your database, it might be better spent than to call Jane Doe, which guess what? She isn't a realtor. She's actually, and she's not married to John Doe, just to let you know, but she's somebody who is somebody you know from your mother's bridge group. Oh my gosh, I'm dating myself, but okay. But you can go ahead and like, that's how you know this person. Oh, cool. Then you call her up, you talk to her and that sort of thing. So that would be a much more valuable phone call to make than the guy who's a realtor. But that's because in your database, you started listing this information and you know how to better spend your time. Smaller databases, of course, you can spend more time on each contact. As your database grows and your business grows, you're going to want that information in there. You've nurtured it. So you want that information in there. So then you kind of know where to spend that time and what you want to do. Some of it's going to be, you're going to have like newsletters, emails, that kind of stuff. And that stuff is the marketing, that stuff's generic. You're going to have maybe something promotional. You know, it could be something like, I actually have a wine pairing list that a lot of times I'll send out during Valentine's. I'm like, hey, this is great for Valentine's. You know, here's how to pair wine, something like that. You can have, after COVID, after the pandemic, you can have an event. And I actually kind of messed up at the beginning of my career because I kept thinking, oh, if I have events, I kept on hearing about some of these other realtors and the events they would do. And they were doing like, oh, well, we rented out this big place and then we rented this movie and then we did this and it was blah, blah. And they went on. I'm like, that's like a $4,000 price tag. And I don't have that in my checking account right now. No, you don't have to do that. You could have a day at the park. You know, you could do something like that where, oh, guess what? We're all meeting at the park. And by the way, you could have like water there. You could have somebody else come in and, you know, pair up with a local vendor and say, look, I would like for you to come and just bring your cookies. And that way everybody gets to know your cookies. And it's just a fun day, you know, at the park, and call it a Frisbee day, call it something like that. But it's an event like that, that is a little bit more personal. It's not necessarily one-on-one, you're taking them to lunch, but it's that little bit more personal thing that's one of those touches. Some of the other touches is stuff like, oh, would you like to get together for coffee? That's one-on-one, you know, sort of thing. Texting, messaging, that kind of thing. The idea is, if you have somebody who's just a lead, i.e., again, off of OpCity or something like that, then it takes about 19 touches to actually make a connection with them. But then when you have somebody that's in your database who's an actual contact, it takes 36 touches on average to convert them to a lead, that eventually they'll become someone that is going to be interested in buying or selling real estate. And it's kind of one of those things that it's like my mom's lemon tree. It's always producing lemons. So sometimes you look at the tree and there's these little tiny green things and like, oh, one day that's going to be a lemon. And then other times like, oh, that one's ready to pull off. So it's that nurturing and helping it grow. And eventually a lot of these will start to be little tiny things, and then they'll get there. Again, I'm a senior specialist. I have a contact that she reached out to me because I'm connected with, I forgot, they're called Elderly something, but they're referral service. And basically somebody calls them up and says, hey, I have a senior issue. I have this, you know, do you know anybody who can help me? So that's how I got this contact. And this woman, Lori, is lovely. I actually met with her. I went to their home. Her husband has Alzheimer's that's advancing. And she knows eventually he's going to have to actually go into a care facility because they live in a home that's, the home itself has about 2 flights of stairs to the home. It's one level, but it has 2 flights of stairs. And it's beginning to get to the point it's a little dangerous for him to live into the home. So she knows that's coming, but it's not there yet. So I've kept in touch with her, you know, and her, I've given a little bit extra. So like at Christmas, I went to her place with a mask on and I dropped off this beautiful, huge poinsettia plant on her front porch. And I let her know, you know, I was dropping it off. I sent her a Christmas card. I've done that kind of stuff. So that's that's part of my 36 touches. That's part of my 36 that I've been doing to keep in touch with her. She's on my email list too. So she gets, once a week, she gets emails from me as well. So I'm constantly keeping in contact with her. Because that's how, when she's ready to make a move, again, nothing's guaranteed, but there's a higher likelihood that she's going to contact me than somebody who contacted her 4 months ago and then she hasn't heard from since. And go ahead, Lance. I've been talking a lot, so you go. Oh, wait, you're quiet.
Sorry. You said you send every week something in the email.
Yes.
Is that always regarding real estate, or
No.
could it be something else?
It's a hybrid. And this is a marketing thing, but I'm going to tell you about it anyway. I learned when I was kind of floundering and I was first starting out, and I started seeking out a whole bunch of avenues. One resource was somebody that specialized in marketing. Now, he dealt with finance, but he specialized in marketing. And initially I heard this from him, but I've heard from very good resources ever since. This is a good rule of thumb. 80% of it is personal. 20% of it's real estate. Let me give you an example. If you guys know of any realtors and their Facebook page is nothing but, here's this latest listing, here's this latest listing, look at what I just sold, here's this, and it's all real estate, how often do you go to their Facebook page? You know, it's almost like that person, and we've all had them, that person that, you know from high school, for me, that's 30 years ago, but people that you knew from high school, and they all of a sudden they got into, this one girl, she's a sweetheart, Jeannie, but she got into this shampoo product. And then all of her postings were about shampoo product. And I'm going, okay, I probably, I'm not going to be going to her Facebook page as much. So what you want to do, because you still want to be front of mind, you let your Facebook page be 80% you. I use my dogs in marketing all the time. I mean, these you guys will see, these girls, they're on half my Valentine's Day cards I send out. They're on a bunch of stuff I send out. In fact, I just updated my Facebook page with them as the banner. They're always in my banner and it's always seasonal. So right now they're my Valentine's Day puppies. I use the girls all the time because people remember that. Other dog owners, we're crazy about other dog owners, and it's that thing you have in common, and it kind of makes that connection. But then also it's personal. It's about me. It's about my dogs. Now, I will post in there. I automatically have every Friday, I post in there the latest, and again, I'm in the Whittier area. So I post 2 zip codes in Whittier and the latest real estate market statistics, the buyer, seller's market, all that kind of stuff. And by the way, it's really easy. I should post that link in the chat. Remind me at the end, I'll post that link in the chat. It's a super easy resource to send out to people. And we get it through our office too. It's really cool. But it's a kind of thing where I'll put that in. Every once in a while I'll put an article in. Every once in a while I'll put in something else. But I took my mom to get vaccinated on Friday. You better believe I put that post of, look, my mom's getting in the, in the thing, and I'm all smiling in it, because then it's about me. So people will remember I'm a realtor, but it's still about me. Lance, now I'm getting to your question. I told you I'm long-winded, but now I'm getting to your question. My newsletter is the same exact thing. I never wanted to do a newsletter because I never was moved to do it. I was like, God, these things are boring. And even when I get realtors emails, I'm like, God, these things are boring. They're all about, look at this listing, look at this, look at this. Okay, fine. I really don't care. But what I started doing is when COVID happened, I thought, how can I be a resource to people? So that was kind of the structure of my email. And I can tell you exactly what it is almost every week. The first is a photo of my mom. And I always started off and I put my mommy. And it could be a flashback photo. It could be a recent photo, for Thanksgiving. I put our Thanksgiving photo. It was just her and I with our dogs. And I put her little selfie of us. I did something like that. Second section is always real estate. And always right underneath that section, I have, if you're buying or selling or thinking or blah, 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 here's my contact info. Even though it's at the bottom, it's also right there. Then after that, I have something usually about nutrition. I'm a health freak. So I have something about nutrition. And one of my really good buddies, he owns Zen's Tea House. So I usually highlight one of his teas. By the way, that's also really good networking there, because now I've taken a local vendor that I'm really good friends with, and he knows every week I'm highlighting something of his. And so it's great reciprocal where he just, it's just great reciprocal. And I have another section in there right now, right underneath that, about vitamins and minerals. And I'll highlight one vitamin and one mineral and why it's important to your health. That's it. And then a lot of times, like last week or the week before, I had one about seniors and the current stimulus that just went through Congress a couple weeks ago. So how does it affect seniors and what do you need to know? So I have a section at that. And then at the bottom, right now for the past, about 10 months, I've had a Maya Angelou quote, and she's at the very bottom. So it's short and sweet. I've had a lot of people, and mind you, I email everybody that. I put everybody on that email list and like, there you go. I've had 9 people ask to unsubscribe, and that's it. I haven't had, now a lot of them may put me in their junk box, and I don't know, that's something you can't determine. But I've had a lot of people come back and say, I love the pictures of your mom. I think that's so sweet. I've had people come back, thank you so much for some of this information. I appreciate it. I've had a number of that. My insurance agent, who I've known ever since I was 16, but we've never had, she's my insurance agent. I've known Wendy for years. And she's an insurance agent. She knows tons of realtors. Her son-in-law and daughter started shopping for a home, and she contacted me and said, could you please help them out? And I was like, wow, sort of thing. And with her, I know that all comes from my email, because we don't really have, before then, we haven't had much of a rapport aside from we know each other from, because I'm with State Farm and she's my local State Farm agent. I've known her for years as that, but nothing more than that. But because my emails weren't just about real estate, and she loved, I put something in about my mom and then some of the other stuff that's in there, she reached out to me when her daughter needed to look at buying a home. And then since then, I've upped the rapport with her too. I have sent her, things, they got poinsettias, that kind of stuff. But that's how I structure my marketing and my stuff. So people stay interested. It's every 10 years, people are on the average of moving or making a decision or something. So if they're engaged that whole time and they just remember you're a realtor, that's what you need. Does that help? Okay, I'm seeing a nod. So I'm gonna go ahead and move on. Okay, yes, database went there. Some of the things you can put in, by the way, a database: pets, birthdays, associations. I'm on Rotary. So, in my database, I tag people, oh, that's a Rotary person, that's a Rotary person. By the way, a lot of these groups that you may belong to or jump into and belong to, they may go ahead and send out an email, and all of a sudden you see everybody else's email address and names. I go ahead and I just pull those babies out and I add them in. Sometimes and a lot of times I'll do an intro. Hey, I just wanted to let you know, I haven't seen you around in Rotary, but I really appreciate you're part of it. And it could be anything. I'm actually vice president of our local shelter for victims of domestic abuse, and I'm very tight with that board. And we all know each other, and they've been all put into my database, and they're part of my weekly mailing too. That's one of those things that you can, if you join something, if it's a passion of yours, then you can go ahead and bring those people into your database. It helps you. Sometimes it's like, well, I don't know a lot of people. You actually do. It's just you haven't thought about who you can reach out to. And that's one way of doing it. Again, if you have, keep track of birthdays, anniversaries, babies being born, could be grandbabies too, pets, and everybody loves, in the 80s, most people, their mail that they got, most of it was junk mail or bills, and that was it. Now, we all know about 90, I think the stat is 95% of mail that we get is impersonal mail. Handwriting a note to someone and just saying happy anniversary, congratulations on being a grandparent, anything like that, and having your throwing your business card or whatever, but doing that means so much to people. I get a lot of people when I send out the birthday cards and that, people telling me how much they appreciate it. The mayor of Whittier, I've gotten to know pretty well. He knows a ton of people, but I send him cards all the time. And Joe is very cool. He's a really stand-up guy. Almost every time I've sent him a card, he sends me a thank you letter. You know, that was just from sending him personal notes and following up with things like that. And guess what? All that got entered into my database. Okay, we are, okay. The third area of your database is going to be the first part. There's 3 levels. Essential. Talked about that. That's all the basics for your contacts. I know the slide. I don't know where the slides are, but okay. The second one is going to be effective, which is some of the information we just talked about. And then the exceptional side is when some of this gets automated. And I saw you yawning, Bella. It's okay. I know I'm boring. So I'm teasing, totally teasing you. I have coffee. That's why I'm not yawning. So when you start to automate things in your database, that's when things get triggered, and not in a bad way, like we're going on Dr. Phil. I'm talking more things get triggered on what you can do to keep in touch with these people. For instance, let's say you do a weekly mailing. That can be something now that because of your database, you can have automatically triggered, like I do on Saturdays. I have my newsletter that goes out. And so that's one of those things that automatically happens because I know, boom, it's there. It reminds you. Another one can be, what if you're going to call this person and they're on, you're making quarterly calls. Well, your database will tell you when you set it up, oh, I need to call this person. And then you record it and then you know. And if you already know the person too, I'm one of those people, if I don't know the person that well and I've called them, it's like, okay, I called them, but it's a lot different if I called that person as opposed to friends of mine, Kim and Tony Finch. They're going to be selling their home in Whittier probably this year. And if I call them and I just get a voicemail, I consider that almost a two-way contact. Really, I do consider it a two-way contact because we're such good friends. They take it just the same as if I talk to them on the phone, because they're not, the air conditioning repair guy I met while I was standing in line at Costco, sort of thing. There's a little bit difference there. Some of the other, automatic triggers are going to be when you may set it up where you're not a big note writer. And so that's one of those things you kind of need a reminder. Oh, let me write this person a note. Bingo. Birthdays, like I said, you can look, that's a trigger for me. I look at my calendar and I'm like, oh, that person's birthday is coming up. I'm sending them a birthday card. So all of that kind of stuff happens because of your database, because you're keeping track of this stuff. And then you record it too. And then like, oh, did I contact Judy Bratt the other day? Yeah, actually I did. I totally forgot that I contacted her. Or I totally forgot that last month I already sent her a card, or that kind of stuff. Because the more you start doing this stuff, I'll sometimes look at my list and I'm like, did I send that person a card, for Christmas? And I'm like, oh, I did. Sorry. Okay, good. So the database helps you keep track of that. So you're not keeping all of that stuff in your mind either, because after a while, you're not going to keep track of it. It's just not going to happen. That's why the database is so valuable to you. Some of the other things too is, like, for me, I have an automatic trigger. My 8A list clients, they get a magazine called American Lifestyle. It's from a company called Reminder Media. And I think I have now like 60 people on that list, something like that. And my bill for that was around $200 this month. So it's not cheap. I'm going to be honest about that, and when I started off in real estate, it was kind of like, oh, the electric bill came in. Oh my God, I'm going to, how bad is it? So when I first started, I couldn't even think about doing some of this stuff. But my AA clients, they're the ones that are people I've done business with. They referred me business, or I want to do business with. Or they're also a gatekeeper. Don't forget, gatekeepers are some of the really important people. Let's say you're somebody that you want to have a really good contact with, I'm trying to think. You want to have a really good contact, like with a probate lawyer, but you really don't know this probate lawyer, that well. Every time you call, you're going to get most likely the receptionist, okay, or the executive assistant. It depends on how big the law firm is, but whatever. You're going to get the gatekeeper. So you put the gatekeeper on that list, maybe as well as the lawyer, because as you get to know the gatekeeper, she'll open the gate, and then you get to have contact with that person. That was a tip that I learned from, I think it was Darren Hardy talked about that. Like, if you really want to, if you know somebody who could be a key referral, a key person to talk to, but you don't have a direct line to them and you have to go through someone, then make friends with the person you're going through. Even, and it could be simple. It could be one of those things where you call them up. Well, I'm sorry, but they're not in right now. They may be in, they just don't want to talk to you. No problem. I thank you so much, Patricia, for taking my call. I really appreciate it. You know what? You've been so friendly on the phone, and in today's world, we just need more of that. Can I send you a $5 Starbucks card as a thank you? Yeah, that would be great. So you send them a $5 Starbucks card. Do you think the next time you try and get a hold, of the gatekeeper or the person you're trying to get to through the gatekeeper, you've already made such a big impression on that person, you'll be more likely, it's not a guarantee, but you'll be more likely to be able to get to that person. So, and all of this stuff you record in your database. You may want to get to Jack Reynolds, who's the attorney, but then you also keep track, but Annie, who's the receptionist and the gatekeeper, she's part of your database too. And you're trying to that as well. So just a little, side note, FYI there. Let's see, that's all automation. When you start to do this, I mentioned this before, but you will have more of a predictable return on investment. You'll start to have more like, do you have things like people have asked me, a lot of times around Christmas, how are things going? And I said, things are going, we're really happy right now. I have a number of things in the pipeline, which I do. Well, everything that's in the pipeline now is from somebody I know, from some of this that after time that I've reached out to them, and then, this person eventually is going to be moving. This person's thinking about buying this person. And it's all those things that have been part of that process. And so that's a part when we talk about, you have contacts, you cultivate, and then it ends up at the bottom. One thing I like about KW is they put down here, this is the general how they do it, but it's not.
Yeah, did you get it? Is this the stuff that we use for the letters now?
Hello,
okay. Cool.
So it's a kind of thing where this is a little bit fuzzy at times. So I don't want you to think the first place I came from, they were like, if you don't have appointment in after knowing, 3 months of this person, take them out of your database. Well, yeah, that's when you're literally surfing for work, business that you can do today, but you're not planting seeds for business tomorrow. So when you're doing this cultivation, those seeds may not come for a while. But like I just said, Josue, Friday morning, he was just in cultivation stage. All of a sudden, Friday afternoon, he wants to set up, and we had a phone appointment, went over everything he needed, started him on the process. Tuesday, we have our first we have our first viewing of a home. And so it's that cultivation may take a while, but then this is overall how it works. You have an appointment, they become active. He's looking to do this now, and he has nothing holding him back. So I would not be surprised if we get under contract within a few weeks. Once he's pre-qualified, and by the way, I'm kind of sidestepping a little bit. Most of the time, like with buyers, you want to get him pre-qualified first. I just know he's already been pre-qualified, and we're just pre-qualifying him again. So technically, we already made sure that was good. I don't want you wasting your time with buyers that are not pre-qualified, because that's also like the thing that will sift through who's serious and who's not serious. You can have a ton of buyers say, oh, I really want to look at homes. Oh, I really want to view things. Okay, well, until you get pre-qualified, we don't know what type of homes that are in your price range and what you want to do. So you need to get pre-qualified first, then we can start looking at homes. Oh, okay. Now, can you put them on a weekly list that they can get homes? You can do that because that's automated. It's one of those things we talked, in your database, we talked about that. It's one of those things you can note in there. Oh, they're on an automated list from the MLS. They automatically get these homes. They say they're interested in homes from $600,000 to $800,000, and they don't want condos. They want an actual home, and blah, 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 blah. So you put all that in there, and they're on that list. But do you get serious where you're taking your time and you're going to take them out to viewings and appointments and that until they get no. They get pre-qualified first. You let them know that's part of the process. Then you go ahead and do that. And if this is somebody who is more of a cold lead, you don't know them very well, then I just want to mention, you probably want the buyer's brokerage agreement, where that is basically, hey, you will take the time and energy to help them find a home, but they're promising to you that they're going to work with only you. Because sometimes too, some buyers, they'll see any agent, oh, can you start sending me stuff? Can you start sending me stuff? And you don't know, they're actually talking to 5 realtors. And you may be spending a lot of time on some buyer and don't know this. And again, guess what? In your database, you can note all this stuff. Oh, they're a serious buyer, and you can tag them as a buyer in Command or whatever you're using. You can tag them in there as that, but then you can even make them, are they a serious buyer? Are they a pre-qualified buyer? You can kind of enhance that database so you know who's more serious and who's not more serious. I have a list of people that I send out. If I get anything about buyers, hey, these are the 5 steps you need to do to get pre-qualified for a home, something like that. I'll send that out to all my buyers. That's no problem. That was a simple email. Everybody's on that list. Big deal. Who cares? Am I going to take somebody to view a home just because they liked it and they see it? No. We need to make sure you're pre-qualified, and I need to make sure you're only going to work with me, because I don't need you shopping around. I mean, this is a rude way of putting it, but I don't need you shopping around for realtors just because of blah, blah, blah. If you're willing to take the time and energy and only work with me, I will take the time and energy and focus on you. And then that way you get the best service possible. That makes sense? Okay. Yeah, it's okay. A lot of the stuff I've already gone through. Yay. And then one of the things, let's go back to the pyramid, Merlin.
All right.
The one thing I want you to notice on this is really a good way of showing this. This shows that I mentioned the idea, prospecting and marketing. Prospecting is that time-intensive thing. The difference between these, also prospecting is very proactive. I need to call this person, and then you call them. You're taking the initiative to do something. Where the marketing is passive, and that's where, again, my Friday example with Josue, he calls me up and tells me. Now, I want you to understand, in between, have we had conversations about real estate? Yes, we have. They've been one-on-one conversations and that sort of thing. Sometimes it's just been, we've gotten together for coffee or whatever. And then, by the way, what's going on with the market? Or he'll ask, hey, we're redoing the floors in our house. Do you recommend refinishing? Because he has, like me, a mid-century home, so he has the original oak floors. Do you recommend refinishing the floors, or do you recommend us putting something over it? Okay, then, we talked about that. So all of that stuff has been leading to that, but that passive marketing has gone hand in hand, where I've still been front in mind the whole time. The prospecting part of it, you get more immediate results. You kind of can find out there. You call somebody on the phone, hey, Letitia, I just was, how are you doing right now? How are things going? How are the kids in school? Blah, 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 all that kind of stuff. There's been a lot of shifts lately. If you know of anyone who is really kind of thinking they need to downsize, they need to upsize, they need more private rooms and not open house concept because they've got 2 kids that are trying to do Zoom, school calls. They've got a spouse who's trying to do Zoom calls, and then they need 4 private spots. Do you know of anybody who's in that situation or so on? Yes, no, I don't know. Do you mind if I follow up with you or something? Because I appreciate it. The reason why is a lot of people, and I just really want to help them. And you come from that, you not like, oh, I want to sell. I just really want to help them. I want to help somebody find the place that would really fit them best, especially right now in the market. It's a great market where things are appreciating really well. And so if anybody wants to make a move, now is the time with the rates so low that it would be, I wouldn't want somebody to miss out on that opportunity. Then you get an answer right then. And that's more the immediate, right when you get off the phone, yes, no, they're thinking in 6 months, they're thinking in 3 months, and all that's located in your, database. What if they say, well, you know what? This school year, we're waiting till the kids are out, and then we're going to pull that trigger. I don't want to do moving with the kids in school. Okay, do you mind if I then contact you in April? Because I know a lot of schools get out in March, and usually when you start looking for a home, it's going to be, a 1 to 2 month, because of this kind of market, transition time. And so then that way we just get everything, our ducks in a row, and we're ahead of the game for you. Yeah, that would be great. Okay. Then you put in your database, bingo, remind me to call this person at this time. In between, you may put other reminders too. Remind me to email them in March. Remind me to send them a thank you card in 2 days. All of that kind of stuff you can put in your database, and then it triggers because then it's automatic. That's the beauty of the database. Okay, it reminds you all of that stuff, because I guarantee you're going to have a lot of things go through your mind, and come April, oh crap, I was supposed to call this person. It's in your database, so it's already there. That's the difference. The long term, the marketing, that's where you've emphasized front of mind, front of mind, front of mind, front of mind. Then when they're ready to pull that trigger, guess who they call? And that's why the two work really well hand in hand. We are coming towards the end of our time. So let me just look at this. When you're looking, by the way, in Command, in most databases are this way. When you tag people a certain way, I got this tip from somebody in our office to tag them as hot leads and warm leads too. I was like, oh, that really helps. Because then a lot of times I can go in my database. Who are my warm leads? Okay, here's all the people to reach out to. Who are my hot leads? And I'll go through, and sometimes I'll be like, oh crap, I was supposed to get a hold of Joshua. And so I text Joshua, and he's one of those people that he literally only makes money through the stock market. And so he's that sort of person. We've had talks, and why do I know all this stuff? Because it's in my database. I don't remember all this stuff, but we've had talks, and he has to save up a lot of money, so therefore he can purchase a home, because he doesn't have this weekly paycheck like a lot of other people do. Okay, great. So I've kept in touch with him, but I know all this stuff too because of my database. He is in my warm leads category. Once we talk and he tells me that he has enough money where he can pay cash for a place, he'll go into my hot leads. And then when I do a search, then he kind of gets more of a focus on me. So that's where the database helps you to keep track, to go back and forth and people, again, this is like a garden. You're going to be shifting all the time because things are going to change, and so you're going to run into that sort of thing. So at this, good resource for hand-mailed cards. I have a dual thing. And this is how I do my cards. Because I send out a lot of cards. One is I have a color laser printer at home. So I put the girls on a lot of, and by the way, I should let you know, my previous life, I was a consultant in the graphic design and video industry. So I know the graphic programs pretty well. So for me, it's no big deal. I've designed my own business card. I can make little, cards, blah, blah, blah. And I can do that. And so it's cute and I can personalize it for every single one. That's one of those things that I'm able to do to kind of put that extra, touch in there. But, also let's say I have a month where I'm sending out 30 birthday cards. That's an awful lot of cards to print. I go on Amazon and I'll buy the bulk packs and I look at the reviews and the card stock, people remark on the card stock. I buy both funny cards, and sometimes when I mean funny, I also mean smart ass cards. And the people I have a really good relationship with, like the one I just mentioned, Kim and Tony Finch, it was her birthday recently. So I sent her a birthday card and it kind of had something on the front where it was like, it was something like party like you're 18, and then you open it up. And just like when you're 18, you won't remember anything the next day, something like that. I don't remember exactly. So she texted me and she went, "Oh my God, this card fits me so well." She goes, "You know me so well." Now, Jenny Ball, who is somebody in our area that she actually is a property manager. And so she's a great contact. And her and I, we have similar interests. Like she's part of the Whittier History Museum and I've supported the Whittier History Museum. Jenny Ball is I wouldn't joke around with that. So I've got cards that are much more like, I hope this birthday, is a pleasant, wonderful birthday with snowscapes or, whatever on it. But I buy cards in bulk. I don't buy individual cards. I just buy them in bulk. And I learned this years ago, and this was when I was 20. So, I mean, we're talking decades literally ago. Hallmark had this one box and they had it where it had individual things. Now, if you buy on Amazon, Hallmark offers the same thing. So, they realized it was a good idea. And in there, they have it where it's like thank you notes, birthday cards, sympathy cards, baby cards, congratulations, all of those different sections. So you always have a card on hand. And I thought, oh my God, that's brilliant. Because how many times is like, oh, it's somebody's birthday. Oh. When I have cards all ready to go and I keep that stocked, it helps so much. So that's what I do now is I just keep all of that stuff stocked and then I just refill it. And especially when you buy them in bulk, it's so much cheaper, just so much cheaper. And because I always, the ones where I include something with a dog, I even bought little paw print stickers and then I seal it with a paw print sticker. Again, it's just part of the marketing thing that I do and it's associated with the dogs. Does that help, Lance? Okay.
Yeah.
Other questions? Thanks. What was something that you kind of like, hey, I just learned something, or that was new, and now I feel differently about it, or I'm going to do something different, or something of that range?
Probably the newsletter information, that it doesn't have to be so, sterile.
Yeah.
No.
And what's really good on that, Patty? One of the people that I know, she puts out her website's called grandparentslink.com. And so I get her newsletter. And every once in a while, she has a really great article in there. And by the way, most of my non-real estate stuff from the newsletter, I pull that from other people's newsletters. I don't create all this stuff. Oh my gosh, no. Plus, then I don't have to worry about the grammar. It's copy and paste. I'm done. But she'll have stuff in there. And then I put in there, this is from Grandparents Link. And if you want to go to the full article, because sometimes I'll just summarize it, but if you want to go to the full article, click here. Well, Leslie, she appreciates that and she remembers that. And then it's also easier on you. And so it's not, don't think that you have to create everything, for one. And also, if you get permission to pull sources like that, people appreciate that and they'll remember that too. How many people have a database of, let's say, 500 or more? Oh, okay, Patty. How many?
I haven't put them in yet, but
Okay, I get that. How many do you think you have?
Me?
Yeah.
Well, I do product placement for film and television. So I work on crews, I work with clients. And then so I don't know. I mean, it's hard for me to tell, but I'll let you know next time I see you. I'm going to start inputting them.
Sure.
You know.
Okay, cool. So we went 500 or more. How about 200 or more? Okay, so Lance, you're at 200. How many do you think you have, Lance?
Like 300 or 400.
Well, that's a really good number to work with. That is a really good number. And just start, categorizing it and work through that. And once you start scheduling that out, that's great. Sometimes we get people who start real estate and they'll be like, I have 80 people. And it's like, okay, their goal then is to go through those 80 people, which won't take that long, and then start to build their database. But once you start hitting that 300 number and above, it's more expanding it. And then don't forget, you may have a lot of Facebook contacts and other social media, LinkedIn or that sort of thing, that you don't have any other information to. And then you can start to mine that. Think of that as one of those things like, we've talked about building a garden. So pull a seed from Facebook. See, I'm using, a little bit of an illustration there. Pull a seed from Facebook and try and put that in your database. You know them on Facebook, but you don't have any other information. Then you can start to pull in more information and do that sort of thing. So
what's a good way to ask for that information?
If it all depends on the level in which you know them. If you barely know them at all, then you may just, like, hey, I noticed you and I have similar posts and that kind of stuff. Would it be possible that I get your email address to keep, more in contact with you? Or, and your phone number. And some people you'll kind of know, because obviously you're going to be messaging them on Facebook, and you'll kind of know their comfort level and where it's at. Other people who you may know, like for me, I knew people from the gym a lot, and we'd be Facebook friends, and all I'd have is a phone number. And so for them, I could be like, hey, you know what? I really want to keep in touch with you. How am I going to send you an email or a birthday card if I don't have that contact info? And I kind of be a little bit of a smart aleck about it. Then they'll send it to me that way. And so sometimes too, asking for it outright is a little bit like, it'd be just like somebody asking you, do you want your information? And I'm like, no, leave me alone. But you tell them, you make it friendly and you approach them in a friendly manner, and you want to be friendly. It's sometimes in real estate, people make this where it's an unfriendly business, and it's just the opposite. The more friendlier you are, the better. So you just make it friendly. Hey, I'd like to just send you a note. And I just want to say how much I appreciate just people right now with everything going on. I think people need to be appreciated more. Can I just send you a nice little note card? A lot of times people are going to say, yeah, I'll do that. Go ahead, Lance.
Do you think the approach should be different for cold calling? Like maybe a quicker approach just to kind of, Yeah,
because cold calling, it's cold calling. You don't know these people. So asking them, hey, how are things going with the family? Who are you? I mean, you don't know these people. So yeah, cold calling is a little bit different of a beast. That's where the scripts really come in handy, because it gives you that outline. It gives you that, like, hey, this is what you want to hit on to ask. And then it even depends on where the lead's from. What if you get this whole list, but it has to do with an association in your neighborhood? Well, then you're going to adjust that script to include everything about that association. Hey, this is Lance. I'm calling you. I know you're part of the association. Can I just pick your brain for a second, because I really want to know something? And then you can go that route. If you don't know these people at all, there's nothing else you just see information black and white, stick to the script, and just make it personal, but stick to the script. That's going to be probably your best avenue. If you know people and you want to have a one-on-one conversation, you're like, what do I ask them about? Bored. Ask them about family, occupation,
recreation.
Thank you, recreation. Yeah. And dreams. Ask them about those 4 things. People always want to talk. And remember, people want to, I talked this whole time, but people want to talk about themselves. So the person who controls a conversation is a person asking questions, and the person who feels good about a conversation is a person answering the questions and talking about themselves. So you ask them any of those Ford questions, and then people will want to, you know, go ahead and speak with you, and you just have that comfortable conversation. Does that help?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Well, technically I'm 5 minutes over. So you guys were a great class. Any other questions, you know, now or email me? You know, my email address was in the chat. And again, all of us in KW, we're really a unique office where we pull together as a team. So you can ask other people questions. I'm always asking other people questions all the time, you know, and some of it's just, how do I up my game? You know, what makes it better? What's a good thank you gift? You know, not one size fits all. It doesn't. And a buyer's gift is going to be much different from a seller's gift. A buyer's gift, they're moving into a home, so you can get them something for the home. A seller's gift, they're leaving that home. Oh, okay, well, you know, you get them a, you know, you get them, I don't know, personalized toilet paper. You get them personalized toilet paper, it's like, well, okay, that's weird. But, you know, it's like, what do you do? You know, it also knows how well do you know them? And one idea that I put out there was that I had one of my clients, her husband was a producer, and he actually won awards for a lot of his documentaries. So I put together a memory box with an actual photo I bought from a historical website. It's not a copy, it's the original photo. And then I put in an article that the LA Times wrote on him in the 70s. And then I put in an original VHS cassette. I know that's dating it, but original VHS cassette in there. And I had all of that in there and put it in a memory box as a tribute to her husband, because she was moving back to Ohio. So she loved it, absolutely loved it, but I know her very well. So, you know, that's the kind of thing where also all of that information, when I was first getting to know her, went into my database. So then by the time that, you know, we actually went into transaction, I already knew so much about her. I knew even how to customize the gift for her. Your database is going to be your business. It really is. And trust me, I was somebody who tried it for a number of years. Oh, I'll get to it. I'll get to it. I'll get to it. Yeah, that didn't do me a whole lot of good. So once I went through my database, I also started not stressing as much, because a lot of it started getting much more automated for me. And it was like, okay. And I kind of could sleep a little bit better. Not that the coffee had anything to do with it. Thank you so much. You guys have been great. I'm so glad you're part of our office. You know, it's just great to see people come in. It's just, I love it there, you know, and obviously I teach. So I'll see you. I have a few more nights coming up that I'll be teaching. So I'll see you then too. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Rob.
Thanks, Rob.